Alright guys, the Chapter 3 update might be exposing a hidden killer that nobody noticed, and this goes way deeper than we thought. Let's get into it. With all the recent teasers and upcoming killers being revealed in Forsaken, there's been a lot going on, and most people have been focused on what's coming next on the surface. But when you actually look a bit deeper into what's being shown, it feels like there's something much bigger being built up in the background, especially when it comes to the Spectre and a character that hasn't really been talked about much recently, Phosphorus. The Spectre itself has always been one of the most mysterious parts of Forsaken, mainly because it doesn't have a confirmed physical form. The only real depiction we have is the distorted presence in the sky, and because of that, anything else we've seen, whether it's artwork or in-game interpretations, isn't actually the true version of the entity. It's more like how survivors imagine it, trying to make sense of something that clearly isn't meant to be understood. Since the Spectre doesn't have any real human traits, a human-like design wouldn't even make sense for it. It's usually described as something closer to a cryptid or an unknown creature, and that's why its true form is left completely open. The only consistent thing we ever see is that strange distortion, which makes it feel like something that exists above everything else rather than alongside it. What makes this more interesting is that the Spectre isn't just a presence, it's also connected to multiple characters through what seems like its own system, almost like a religion with servants. Characters like Nosferatu and Azure are already tied to it, and now there's a strong argument that Phosphorus is part of that same group, possibly even one of the most important figures within it. And this is where things start to connect properly. Phosphorus hasn't really been mentioned much recently, especially since he was teased quite a while ago. But if you actually look closely at what's been happening in the game, there's one detail that keeps showing up, and that's his symbol. This symbol has been appearing across multiple characters, and once you notice it, it becomes very obvious that it's not just a coincidence. The biggest example of this is Nosferatu. His default skin has the symbol placed directly on his chest, and it's clearly meant to be seen rather than hidden. On top of that, during the Masquerade event, the coffin in the center also had this exact same symbol, which already suggests that it isn't just tied to one character, but something that exists within the world itself. Azure is another example of this, with the symbol placed right in the center of his chest as well. A lot of players didn't notice it at first, but once it was pointed out, it became clear that this was being done intentionally. But one of the most unexpected characters that has this symbol is the martial artist. At first, he doesn't really seem connected to the rest of the lore, especially since he's a VIP exclusive survivor and feels like a separate addition compared to characters like Nosferatu or Azure. However, the symbol is placed right on his arm, which makes things a lot more confusing when you start connecting everything together. And this is where Nosferatu's story starts to explain things better. According to his lore, Nosferatu was approached by a mysterious agent working under the Spectre, who offered him a deal of infinite desire and celebration in exchange for entering the Forsaken Realm. He accepted that deal, and that's what led him into the world we see now. The interesting part is that many players believe this mysterious agent isn't just a random character, but actually Phosphorus himself, acting as someone who carries out the Spectre's influence. If that's true, then Phosphorus isn't just another upcoming killer. He could actually be one of the main reasons why certain characters ended up in the Forsaken Realm in the first place. This idea becomes even stronger once you reach Milestone 4 with Nosferatu, where you can interact with a bat that explains the meaning behind the symbol. It's tied to the sign of gluttony, which adds a completely different layer to everything we've seen so far. Instead of just being a visual detail, the symbol starts to represent something much deeper. It suggests that characters marked with it weren't just designed that way, they were chosen or influenced in some way. Because of this, a lot of players are starting to believe that multiple characters were approached by Phosphorus and brought into the Forsaken Realm through similar deals. Some even think that Phosphorus could be the real figure behind the Spawn cult, meaning that what people thought was tied directly to the Spectre might actually go further than that. At the same time, the fact that the martial artist also has this symbol raises even more questions, because it suggests that this connection goes beyond just a few characters and could be part of something much larger. Another important part of this theory comes from the 7 deadly sins, which seems to be something the game is slowly building toward with each new character. Azure is believed to represent wrath, while Nosferatu clearly represents gluttony. When Guest 666 was released, it wasn't clear what they represented, but now it seems like they could also be part of this system. Now that the martial artist is included in this, we still don't know what he represents, but he's clearly part of the same pattern, especially since he was quietly updated with a new render, suggesting that the developers are still working on his role. There's also speculation around Sixer, who could potentially represent lust. This mainly comes from their Milestone 3 quote, "You always hated me, I always hated you," which shows a kind of obsession, particularly toward Noob. Even their Milestone 4 quote supports this idea, with "I'm no longer afraid of who I am, the monster deep within," which could represent accepting that obsession. On top of that, there's even a slight resemblance of the phosphorus symbol in their full render, specifically on their tail, which could be another subtle reference. So when you look at all of this together, it becomes clear that the 7 deadly sins aren't just random ideas, they're part of a larger system that's being built over time. And this all connects back to the Spectre. Not only is the Spectre this unknown entity in the sky, but it's also been described as a fledgling by Jane Doe, which suggests that it has evolved over time and possibly had a different form in the past. Some players even believe that the wave shown in the roadmap could actually be the Spectre itself in a different form. The red background has led some people to believe it represents a band wave, which would fit Doombringer's theme perfectly. You can also see the Spectre represented throughout the game in different ways, such as being the skybox in certain maps like a pizza place, which further reinforces the idea that it exists everywhere rather than in one place. In the April Fool's update, another version of the Spectre was introduced, the Actuality. This could either just be a joke or part of the Swapsaken lore where everything is reversed. In that version, the Actuality appears to have more control and possibly even better intentions, but its design still includes 2 important symbols, Alpha and Omega, which represent the beginning and the end. This could suggest that there are more entities like the Spectre within Forsaken, and if that's the case, then Phosphorus might not just be a servant, but part of something much bigger. Both Phosphorus and the Spectre clearly play major roles in the game, and with everything being built up slowly over time, it feels like all of this is leading towards something massive. This could likely be a final event for Chapter 3, allowing us to go against the Spectre to maybe unlock Phosphorus. How do you think Chapter 3 will end? Subscribe and hit the bell for more Forsakening it.